I'm Jason Lapidus, co-creator and artist of Group of Seven and Peregrines, and I am on a mission. Join me on my never-ending journey to continue leveling up. Welcome, comics readers, makers, and fans. In this episode, I'm taking a look at Bowling with Corpses and Other Strange Tales from Lands Unknown by Mike Mignola and Dave Stewart to see what I can learn to help me get closer to mastering the craft. Keep in mind that this is not intended to be an exhaustive examination of the text or its history, but a brief look at one or two of the elements of the work that I, and possibly you, can learn from. And don't miss the time-lapse drawing session at the end. But before we dive in, you can support the channel by reading our books. 7 famous historical figures on a secret fictional mission to save the world. Group of 7, A Most Secret Tale, written by Chris Sanigan and art by yours truly. A team of spies, undercover as frontline nurses, defend against the unknown and the unbelievable. Peregrines, fights, fiends, and fisticuffs. Again, written by Chris Sanigan and art by yours truly. Both for sale in print and digital formats on our site, group7comics.ca. There you can also subscribe to our newsletter and stay up to date on the upcoming comics, appearances, and episodes. Thank you for your support. I've been a fan of Mignola's art since nearly the beginning of his time at Marvel, but I was very late getting interested in Hellboy. Since I started making comics, Mignola has often been a North Star for me. I really can't get enough of his stuff. And the complement of Dave Stewart's colors over Mignola's layouts, rendering, and inks is pure magic for me. I'm really fascinated at the moment by page composition, panel layout, and sort of the graphic design of it all. So this kind of full bleed artwork is a choice, and I'm often curious as to the reasoning behind it. And the way my brain works, I want to know the logic of everything. I kind of want to know the rules of the game. I want to know, when you do this full bleed panel, what does that mean? So once I understand what it means, I'll know when to use that tool. So for me, it's all very logical and rational. It makes it very hard for me to take chances and take risks because I don't know what the consequences of my choices actually are. I feel like I'm basically shooting in the dark. So I'm constantly trying to decode the choices and the intention made by these artists without a lot of insight. And it would feel like I'd be asking a series of stupid questions, but these things are incredibly meaningful to me. I love Dave Stewart's palettes. I mean, in this particular story, they're very natural looking colors, and he doesn't overuse any of the techniques that feel artificial or too digital. For instance, it does go from a lighter to a darker, or less saturated to, no, it's a lighter to a darker green, as the character is moving forward and whistling. Beautiful little shape from Mignola. Like, you just don't need more than that to read that well. Super subtle textures in the sky too. So looking at this 2-page spread, in my comic making process, I started out thinking about panels and then moved to thinking about pages. When I'm pacing out a story, whether it's something that I've come up with originally or something that I'm working in collaboration with Chris, I'm thinking exclusively in 2-page spreads. What side of the book is my first page going to be on? So that I could then plan out everything in these 2-page spreads. There is a degree of symmetry here that's really beautiful and balance. For instance, we have a panel going full bleed and a panel here going full bleed. And so they kind of help balance each other out. We have these sort of stacked panels, and here we have some stacked panels, and that kind of balances each other out. And then we have almost a third of a page and almost a third of a page broken into some smaller pieces. And I find this really interesting and graphically pleasing, but I also am trying to understand why Mignola chooses these things when he does choose them. Like, I'm trying to figure out what purpose they serve. So, for instance, the connection between this moment versus this, 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 and how these three run together, or these three run together, or these three run together. This is a unit, and this is a unit, and this is a unit. And I find that really, really interesting. And I like the idea of thinking about comics in that way. With a comic I worked on with Chris, I think 2 years ago, called Peregrines Hunter's Moon, I started taking these panels that were 1/6 of the page and dividing them into smaller pieces, kind of like this, like how you'd have these two squares, right? We have a square here and a square here, but you can divide that square into smaller parts. So I would imagine that this takes up a certain amount of time and this one takes up a certain amount of time, but this gets divided into three. So these are like faster edits in a way. If we're looking at it as it's moving through time, you hold on this a little longer, and the total amount of time that you give to this is the same amount of time you give to this, but you divide that then in three. Our eye moves obviously from here across this panel, these characters, and here we go back up and read what this boy says. Move across to see the reaction, and then we go down, and as this character hands a skull, it directs us back this way into that narration box, which takes us then into the image. And we go back through as he begins bowling with a skull. Really cool. I love this connection between there to there. Really good design. It would also make sense for a lot of people to flip this, to have the characters here passing the skull that way. And that leads the eye from left to right as we do read. But the fact that Mignola did it this way, it moves the skull here, right there, as the character is handing the skull off. The movement is this way, which takes us to the next. And a lot of other letterers or designers of these pages would have put that here and just not have that connection between these two in a meaningful way. But this is very, very thoughtful. So the bones here, or the pins in bowling, are illuminated. So that's in light. The next layer is dark. That creates a gap, some distance, illusion of depth. Then at the edge of that darkness is the boy, who's just into the shadow, and there's a layer of light, and then another layer of dark, and then another layer of light, another layer of dark. And having these things on top of each other creates or helps create or communicate the illusion of depth. Another panel that goes full bleed, and of course its sort of counterpart, right? Full bleed up here too. I'm really interested by these split panels. Right now I've been struggling with characters changing color as they change locations. And I think I've been overthinking it. And I think it's okay to let your character have some key colors and leave them be. Change the highlight on them, but in general, you can leave them be. Daylight, not blue sky. This is great. This reminds me so much of the Fellowship of the Ring, as the hobbits are walking along that road or just as they're leaving the area that they know, coming across those dark riders. It's so cool as you kind of walk under the shadow of those trees. I also just wanted to note, I feel like his gutters are smaller than standard mainstream gutters that I was, I guess, used to, probably from Bronze Age and in the 80s, 90s. At full size, at the 11 by 17 drawing size, I think these are like 1/8 of an inch, like 0.125 inches, where a lot of gutters that I see on templates and such are 1/4 of an inch at 0.25. He knows when not to bog it down with cloud, but Dave Stewart is putting in texture in the sky, almost like watercolor or wash, but it's done digitally, I'm pretty sure. And then here Mignola will add very definitive clouds with line art. And there's that choice you can make to do a color hold on those edges. And most colorists these days would do color hold. And lots of Hellboy, I've seen Dave Stewart do color hold all over Duncan Fegredo's art too. But here he's leaving it. I'm interested. I want to know why. Really nice way to communicate a memory as well, or a story being told that's now out of this place. So we have this particular palette in this space, throw in a new color, right? This is a new space. We're not in this space. This those blues aren't happening anywhere else in the story so far. So it's letting us know that that's a different idea. I like having these narration boxes go over, like bridge two panels. Kind of takes the eye from one to the other. And really on this 2-page spread, it's just two people talking. Right? It really is just talking head comics in this one, in this 2-page spread. But I find there's a lot to look at. It's very interesting. Next time I have to do a good exposition, I should remember to look back. I love these little shape that this boy has. Just him in his cape. It's unique. When you have this kind of even measure of 1, 2, and 3, but you divide one, it makes this meter go fast. You give this a certain amount of time and it's blip, blip, and it moves on. Just, it's a quick motion of grabbing that arm. Like no background, no background, no background, no background, no background. Almost no background. You can get away with it. I think I'm overdrawing backgrounds on this latest story. And now this red. He saved it. Right? We can go back through this whole story. He doesn't use this red until right here. And it's such a meaningful reveal of a color. I don't want to spoil the rest of this book. Check it out. I've definitely picked up a few key things from reading this first story in Bowling with Corpses. But what about you? What have you learned that I haven't mentioned? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think of this stuff and if you liked it or if you didn't. Or any kind of creative, critical opinion you have. Something you can add to help support the conversation. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next episode of Leveling Up. And even though I can't wait to apply the things I've been talking about in this episode, these concepts of storytelling and panels and pacing, as well as color saturation and palette, I still have to think commercially. And for my drawing, I got to go back to Hellboy. I know that I would love to be able to start a whole new comic just for this video, but I know that if I draw a Hellboy piece, I can probably sell it in the near future. And that's on my mind. So Hellboy it is.
Leveling up.